Nearly 1,800 years ago, China would undergo one of the bloodiest chapters of its history. Over 30 million lives will be lost as the collapse of a dynasty triggers a war for domination. The brutal battle for China has been immortalized in popular culture, producing heroes and villains who have captured the imagination of generations. Now, these stories are about to come back to life. 2009, in Anyang, Henan Province, workers stumble upon a surprise discovery, an ancient tomb dating back to the time of the Three Kingdoms. Can it be the final resting place of one of the era's greatest legends? I am Dr. Agnes Xu, and I am an archaeologist. I am on the trail of one of ancient China's most controversial figures. From the desecration of the bones to investigate and separate fact from fiction in a highly romanticized saga. And to uncover the secrets hidden within a tomb of the Three Kingdoms.
This looks like an emperor's tomb.
In the central plains of China lies the city of Anyang. With a history of over 3,000 years, it is celebrated as one of China's 8 ancient capitals. But in 2009, Anyang would find itself in the spotlight as an unexpected discovery ignites debate. Workers digging for clay near the village of Xixiaoge unearthed part of an ancient mausoleum. What they find inside the tomb rocks the archeological world. Amongst the relics is a stone tablet with the inscription, King Wu of Wei. Throughout Chinese history, one figure has been synonymous with this title. He was Cao Cao, a historical statesman from one of the bloodiest chapters of China's history. The Three Kingdoms. For over 1,000 years, Cao Cao's historical legacy has been divisive. For some, he was a brilliant statesman. For others, he was a cruel and ruthless military leader who brought down the mighty Han Dynasty. The discovery of a tomb that could be Cao Cao's final burial ground has opened up a rare window for archaeologists into the ancient past. But most importantly, it may give us an understanding and insight into the real man that was Cao Cao. Cao Cao came to prominence over 1,800 years ago. He would command one of the 3 factions vying for control of all of China as the imperial Han Empire collapsed. This brutal war for domination was fictionalized more than 1,000 years later into an epic novel known as The Romance of the Three Kingdoms. One that paints Cao Cao as the ultimate villain who usurped the power of heaven. But how much of this popular story is historical? And if this is truly Cao Cao's tomb, what secrets can it reveal about the statesman and his times? To find out, I travel over 20 kilometers from the city of Anyang to the site of the original discovery. I am meeting up with Professor Pan Weibing, the head of the excavation team. This is the first time that a foreign film crew has been granted access to enter the tomb site.
这前面是它的墓道，这个墓道是非常宽，10米宽，40米长。
这是我看过所有东汉墓里头最大的一块。
过去啊，只是活人他建那个府邸那个门厅，说这个墓道越大，这门越大越高。
This looks like an emperor's tomb.
The pathway into the tomb descends over 15 meters below the earthen surface to the crypt. Whoever was buried here was very important. Someone befitting of a king.
咱们也可以看这一点，这个当时啊，它这个木门两边都用这个修的砖墙做护坡。
所以原来的木门是在这儿，
木门就在这儿，
在那儿，然后这里是砖墙，
这边是砖墙是做护坡。
所以它混合了实心砖还有木柱，
对，
来支撑的这个建筑。
这当时这是封的这个砖墙啊，封着的，大砖墙封的，这边也是砖墙，这是砖墙，这么厚，里面是个煤草，
这是石头了，
砖都是砖，
这是砖
啊，好的，
这么大的砖。
对，
东汉墓里头有这么大的。
这是帝王建墓的专用的，专门为帝王那个建墓烧制的砖。
But archaeologists were also astounded by the layout of the tomb. The site is relatively unimposing, but 15 meters below ground spread a subterranean palace. Instead of just one burial space, there are front and rear chambers with 2 side rooms, and domed ceilings that extend over 6 meters high. It's a style that is closely related to the late Han Dynasty's custom of emulating life even in death, where the size and grandeur of an aristocrat's resting place reflects his status in life, suggesting that the owner of this crypt wielded immense power and influence. But the archaeological team soon encounters a major problem. Robbers have raided the tomb, emptying the vault of many of its precious artifacts that could have helped identify the tomb occupant and his exact status. But are there other details hidden here that could offer us more clues?
Bricks are such ordinary things that we don't think about. But in building ancient tombs, especially from the Eastern Han Dynasty, we know it's the basic material. These bricks amaze me because of their size. They are so much bigger than the solid bricks that are used for ordinary aristocratic tombs we find from Eastern Han Dynasty. In terms of size, in terms of material, and the way they're laid, this is masonry par excellence in the ancient world.
这个曹操棺材就在这个位置。曹操棺材这个位置，哎，在这是你看到这儿。
So this is where the main
哎，你
coffin.
看到这位置了吗？这是这个位
I
置。
see.
这边还有
Where
一
it
个
was,
啊，这
where
边
it
有
was
一个。
positioned.
哎，来这边看这有一个是吧？哎，这边还有一个。这是他的一个石棺床，然后棺床上面放的是很大的一个木棺。
What we are postulating here, the traces on the floor indicate to us that originally the coffin was actually positioned on top of a stone bed.
Yeah.
We have read about in ancient records, emperors had their coffins rested on top of a stone bed made of slabs of stone and with fine carvings. That's why it's so large.
Yes.
For centuries, Cao Cao has been vilified for usurping the power of the rightful emperor. If this is his tomb, is it proof that this story is true? The crypt is grander than some imperial tombs from the late Eastern Han period, suggesting that its occupant wielded power above that of the imperial throne. But did Cao Cao really cause the collapse of one of China's mightiest empires? To find out, I need to journey back in time to the last days of a crumbling dynasty. I travel to the city of Luoyang in the heart of China. It is the site of the Eastern Han Dynasty's last imperial capital. A once mighty empire whose collapse many have attributed to the warlord Cao Cao. Professor Qian Guoxing has been studying the city ruins over the last decade. According to him, the imperial capital of Luoyang was an icon of the empire's power. But its grandeur belied underlying tensions that were already tearing the dynasty apart.
东汉末期呢，实际上当时是中国是这样一个动乱的时期，因为这个东汉王朝呢，它逐渐到后期以后呢，它的统治已经比较衰败，而且国力也比较弱。它这个呢，也是跟当时的社会发展到一定的程度有关系。当时因为这个王权的衰败，所以说造成了这个国力的这个衰败。国力的统治衰败呢，就是去四方就是割据啊，什么这个老百姓要反抗啊，这样一些造成了一些动乱，就是有很复杂的这个社会原因吧。
Born to an aristocratic family with connections to the imperial house, Cao Cao quickly rose up the ranks after successfully suppressing rebellions breaking out across the empire. But did Cao Cao really cause the final collapse of the dynasty, or was he a figure shaped by his time and circumstances?
这个时期呢，实际上国家这么动乱，需要一个就是一个稳定的状况。但是怎么来实现呢？实际上也是通过这个不同的征战，就是有一些群雄起来，看谁能够势力比较强大，能把国家尽快的统一，这样对国家可能是更加有利。所以曹操也是他应运而生，在这个时代，所以他起了很大的作用。
A historical figure like Cao Cao was created as a response to the instability of the era. In the same way, the conditions that led the Eastern Han Dynasty to its pinnacle of power and final demise would also impact the rest of ancient China.
From the beginning of time, walls, city walls, have always been the symbol of a civilization in Chinese history. Here we are standing on 2,000-year-old ruins of the ancient city walls of the Eastern Han Empire. This was an empire that was built on the foundation of a decentralized imperial power when the time that landed gentry first rose in Chinese history, which will come to dominate the rest of medieval Chinese history. The walls remain to show us the mightiness of the Han Empire. Yet, the empire is no longer here. This was the cycle of a dynasty, the rise and the fall, the spring and autumn of history.
In 189 AD, these very walls would burn as rebellious warlords sacked the capital city. The event prompts Cao Cao to move out of the capital to build his own army and influence. If the tomb in Anyang is really his final resting place, what secrets can it reveal about Cao Cao's historical legacy? And can the artifacts unearthed prove that he is the owner of the tomb? The discovery of a mysterious tomb in Anyang, Henan province, has stirred controversy. Scholars remain divided as to whether the crypt belongs to 2nd century warlord statesman Cao Cao. If the site in Anyang is indeed his final resting place, it may reveal secrets of his historical legacy. But attempts to solve the mystery of the tomb owner's identity have hit a deadlock. The site has been robbed repeatedly over the centuries. Can the remaining artifacts provide us with enough clues? Professor Pan Weibing invites me to his research lab, where he and his assistants are piecing together the fragments. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding the tomb comes from the kind of burial relics unearthed. Terracotta replicas of everyday items were left untouched as grave robbers found them of little value. But these seemingly mundane artifacts hide an important secret.
This collection here of these pots is the most significant in meaning.
after the early part of Han Dynasty, in terms of funerary objects, to be buried at the rank of an emperor, you would have been buried with a set of 12. So here we find exactly 12. Other objects include a suite of jade ritual items that symbolize the power of the emperor in death. But there's no mention in historical records of an emperor being buried at the location of the Anyang tomb.
这个石牌是咱们发掘出来，所有东西都咱们发掘出来，是魏武王常所用的护大旗。这个石牌是魏武王常所用的护短矛。
The tablets are a significant find. Throughout Chinese history, one figure has been famously known as the King of Wei, and he was the 2nd century warlord Cao Cao. But are there other clues hidden within these tablets that could relate them to the statesman? This tablet says that this was an apparatus used by Wei Wu Wang to hunt tigers. We have historical documents that testify. In fact, when Cao Cao was young, as well as his son, they both enjoyed hunting, and that specifically they hunted tigers. But these stone tablets are not without controversy. Art historians have criticized that these inscriptions are too modern for a relic from that era. Others believe that these tablets were forged much later. But Professor Pan has a theory regarding the style of writing inscribed.
这个是从那个汉隶啊，从那个隶书，向那个楷书过渡的时期，因为那个时候不是曹操他喜欢写草书和楷书，说他曾经让一些大臣、书法家不是改写草书，这些人不是都不愿意，人家说那草书写的都不好看，不庄重是吧？ 曹操说：“你改吧，这个是写草书是非常好的，草书快。”
In terms of script, he understood that the regulation restrained the speed of carving, the speed of writing. So he allowed 2 different styles to flourish from this point on. Besides being a celebrated statesman and military strategist, Cao Cao was an accomplished poet who innovated the Chinese writing style. But while this may explain the inscriptions on the stone tablets, archaeologists would soon be confounded by another mystery. The tomb was uncovered near Anyang City in Henan Province, but within the site, the team finds artifacts that seem to originate from Shandong Province, over 300 kilometers to the west. The carving on here is absolutely exquisite. It's of such fine quality that we don't see in the Henan area. We see stone carvings of this quality of storytelling really in the Shandong region, where in the late Eastern Han period, we find them throughout that area.
曹操曾经在这个山东啊。 长期做这个官，而且曹操去世以后，这些青州兵不是马上不是返回去了，返回故乡了。说啥？说是我们只忠于这个魏王。也许他们就把这些技术啊，就是那工匠啊，从那边过来一批工匠啊，帮助给他完成这个墓葬了。
According to historical records, Cao Cao had huge influence over most of northern China. But how did he achieve that? The crumbling of the Eastern Han Dynasty brought widespread upheavals across China. Years of internal strife have devastated the empire economically. While fertile farmlands lay abandoned as refugees drifted across the provinces to escape the raging turmoil. It was against this historical backdrop that Cao Cao began to consolidate his own power. Just how did he build one of the most powerful armies in Chinese history? I traveled to Xuchang in Henan province, northern China. This is where Cao Cao would begin his ambitions over 1800 years ago. I meet up with Professor Ma Baoji, who has been studying Cao Cao's early political reforms. According to him, one of Cao Cao's key moves was a groundbreaking land reform. Known as the Tuntian system, soldiers were set to work converting conquered lands into farms, adding an economic element to Cao Cao's conquests. This agricultural system also had a dual effect of stabilizing Chinese society.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the very beginning of this land reform dates to about 196 AD?
那么这个屯田制度呢，在曹操来说，最主要的一种情况就是，他把这个流民给编为一定的固定的组织。那么在曹操之前，汉代相对来说是一个比较安定的一个社会，就是动乱之后，到处才有流民，才有这个闲置的人力，还有闲置的土地。所以这个时期，他把闲置的土地和闲置的人员，甚至劳动力结合在一起，应该说是非常完美的一种形式。
So what was the immediate success and the long-term impact?
应该说，采取了各种措施之后，屯田收获非常大。这个据史料记载呢，当年就收入是1.5亿斤，所以说当年就取得了很大的丰收。那么这个情况就直接导致曹操的军力得到了很大的提升。
But Cao Cao's growing influence would soon attract the attention of powerful enemies. In 207 AD, a rival warlord attacks Cao Cao's fledgling army with an overwhelming force, threatening to put an early end to his ambitions. By 196 AD, Chinese warlord Cao Cao had built up a formidable power base. But his growing influence attracts the unwanted attention of his rivals. In 200 AD, a powerful warlord, Yuan Shao, attacks Cao Cao from the north. Yuan's more advanced forces heavily outnumbers Cao Cao's army, and his fate seems sealed. But in a twist of events, Cao Cao completely destroys the attacking army using guerrilla tactics and unifies all of northern China in what is now known as the Battle of Guandu. But his success was a double-edged sword. His other foes across China would soon unite against him, frustrating his attempts to dominate the country. In the popular novel, The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, it has been written that Cao Cao's paranoia about his enemies plagued him constantly, influencing how he planned the site of his final resting place. Could this provide a clue to solving the mysteries surrounding the Anyang tomb? I traveled to Handan City in Hebei province. For centuries, locals have believed that the land here holds evidence of Cao Cao's cunning and deceit. Legend has it that in order to confuse his enemies even in death, Cao Cao had ordered the construction of 72 tombs so that no one could find his final resting place. Many believe that the ancient tombs uncovered in this area are proof of this story. But what is the truth? And if these 72 tombs are authentic, what does it say about the Anyang crypt uncovered in 2009?
Okay, can you? So for a long time, we have this legend of the 72 possible burials of Cao Cao. When did this legend begin?
关于曹操这个72遗种这个说法，最少有1000多年的历史了。因为在南朝的时候，有一个著名诗人叫范成大，他就专门写了一首遗种诗。其中有2句，说这个经发72遗种，必有一种呢葬军师。72遗种这个传说啊，从那个时候开始就是传的越来这个话题越浓，直至到那个明代，《三国演义》那部名著里边，还有一段这个专门写曹操的这个遗种。所以这个传说从那开始，经过《三国演义》这部书的渲染，在民间大家就深信不疑。
所以72遗种一定是个传说
啊，已经成为一个传说了。
从古至今是个流传。
对，是的。
But the myth of Cao Cao's 72 tombs would not be debunked until 1986, when archaeologists excavating the sites find evidence that they date nearly 300 years after his death. But if so, then what about the mystery surrounding the Anyang tomb? Professor Pan Weibing invites me to the Henan Archaeological Institute, one of China's most protected vaults of artifacts. He wants to show me an object that he believes can bring us closer to the truth. Unearthed in 1998, the relic is an epitaph of an official who lived a century after Cao Cao's death. It describes the location of the owner's burial place in relation to Cao Cao's tomb.
So this is like a treasure map. How exciting!
是当时这个魏武帝曹操这个高陵啊，它地面那个还比较明显，所以它这个应该是当时的一个比较这个有名的这个地方啊。它就是鲁切不是就以它为标志，来自就是记录了自己的墓葬的位置，主要是记录他这个去世的时间、埋葬的地点。所以他这个把自己的墓葬记录这么清楚啊，可能是留给这个将来留给后人啊，提供一些方便，有可能是有这个意思。
But the original landmarks listed on the stone tablet are long gone, making it extremely difficult to plot out the exact coordinates of Cao Cao's tomb. I decide to further my investigations. By examining geographical clues found in historical records, ancient documents place Cao Cao's tomb 15 kilometers south of the ancient city of Ye. The location correlates with the site of the tomb, uncovered in Xixiaoge village in Anyang County. But without a second reference point, it is hard to determine the accuracy of this deduction. I decide to dig deeper and uncover another important clue. According to the records, Cao Cao left instructions to be buried near the temple of an ancient statesman whom he greatly admired. I decide to head out in search of this ancient shrine. Xi Menbao was a historical figure who lived during the Warring States period. He's famous throughout this region, the ancient Ye city, for pacifying the water by putting an end to superstitious practice of human sacrifice. And we also know from historical documents that Cao Cao respected him as administrator and for his economic policies. The memorial stele marks the site of the original temple dedicated to the ancient statesman Xi Menbao. According to ancient records, Cao Cao's tomb is approximately 7.5 kilometers east of this location. I test the directions given and find myself at the entrance of the Anyang tomb site.
离古代邺城远不远？
邺城就在这个正东，15也是15公里。
那西门豹祠在哪？
西门豹祠在这东边，它也是在这个邺城和这个曹操高陵之间，就正中间，也就是离这儿有15里，7.5公里。地理环境上是正好是处于这个两点之间。
But despite the findings, some critics remain unconvinced of the tomb's authenticity. If the geographical clues and artifacts fail to offer conclusive evidence, can forensic science provide the answer? The discovery of a mysterious tomb in Anyang, China, has sparked debate as to whether it is the final resting place of the ancient warlord, Cao Cao, a figure who once threatened to dominate all of China 1800 years ago. But now, modern science may provide us with the clues to solve the puzzle. Deep in the chambers of the tomb, archaeologists find the remains of 2 women and a man. Can these bones prove that the tomb indeed belonged to Cao Cao? The archaeological team sends the remains to 3 separate forensic labs, and the results are electrifying.
后来他鉴定结果跟我们说，这个是60多岁，是男性的，他是在建安25年去世，也就是公元西元20年，当时他是66岁。
The test results match historical records detailing Cao Cao's approximate age and year of death. But one mystery remains. Forensic experts examining the bones discover that the tomb occupant falls short of the imposing stature many believe Cao Cao possessed.
他说这个短，我大概这个人个儿是多高？他说大概1.55到1.6米，超不过1.7米，超不过1.6米多。哎，我说这个曹操这个儿就这么低吗？哎，事实上就是啥，就是咱们过去不是，可能是那个按那个《三国演义》或者就是拍那个电视剧啊，咱们一看到曹操很威武。
If we go back to real history, 魏书, from contemporary records, we find out that Cao Cao was in fact a man of relatively short, probably between 150 to 160 centimeters.
Forensic science suggests that the occupant of the Anyang tomb may be Cao Cao himself. But the state of the human remains triggers more questions. Archaeologists found that the face of the skull had been smashed into pieces, leaving only the back intact. Was the body damaged over the centuries by grave robbers? Or was it a deliberate act of desecration? I decide to travel back to the tomb site to solve the mystery.
这个北侧室里面呢，有一个这个棺椁，是吧？我们这个发掘的时候，它已经被盗，你看中间有个盗坑，是吧？盗掉了。然后呢，后边还盗掉了。当时这个它这个尸骨啊，已经被扔到这外边，中间这后室里面了。
The bodies were dragged out of their chambers and damaged. But archaeologists will find something even more shocking. The massive coffin containing the tomb's main occupant was smashed into thousands of pieces.
因为它敲得太碎了，太多了，量也大，这是完全出乎我们的意料的。
那是故意的吗？
这应该啥呀？他要盗他的就尸骨嘛，把他尸骨从里面挖出来，拉出来，他必须把它敲掉，要不然他这个东西门，它这个门那么小是吧？进去以后它是不好弄的，是吧？
The body of the tomb's main occupant was dragged out into the outer chamber and literally ripped apart. More astonishingly, Professor Pan's investigation reveals that this incident happened barely 50 years after the occupant's burial. What could be the intent behind such a meticulous act of desecration?
为什么那时候盗这个曹操墓呢？在八王战争之间，他这些人不是都是西晋的王室啊，王室成员，这些人不是都怀着这个很强烈的这个权力这个欲望，争权嘛。所以他第一次盗墓时候，我推测应该是出于啥子破坏风水啊，进行政治报复啊，他把它打开了。
The second reason is actually quite fascinating, to destroy what today we will call feng shui, but in pure archeological term, we call it geomancy. It's to divine by geography. We see this from the desecration of the bones. This is almost like a curse, so that they will not have a peaceful immortality. Whoever was buried here was so important, so powerful, that those who came after him wanted to destroy evidence of his rule.
The act of desecration reflects a divisive legacy left behind by Cao Cao. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, an epic novel written more than 1,000 years later, describes the era as a battle between good and evil over the fate of China, with Cao Cao being the ultimate villain. But how much fiction has been confused with history? To find out, I visit a shrine dedicated to one of Cao Cao's greatest adversaries. Guan Yu was a general who would meet his demise in 220 AD after being captured in battle. But for centuries, popular culture would paint his death as a result of Cao Cao's deceit. Today, Chinese across the world venerate Guan Yu as a symbol of loyalty and bravery, while vilifying Cao Cao for the general's downfall. But here in Xuchang, the Guan Yu Temple holds a historical twist to the popular story. I meet up with Professor Zhang, who shares the secret hidden within this location.
许昌的关帝庙呢，和其他的地方不同的就是它突出了关羽和曹操之间的情和义的成分。这一点呢，跟其他是不一样的。其他地方一般来说他们会赞扬关公，然后呢贬曹操。
贬曹操是。
对，在我们许昌那个眼里呢，曹操是关羽的知音，是他成就了他的事业。
In past eras, aristocrats were favored for military leadership. But Cao Cao would select his officers based on merit. I have discovered one very important historical fact. Cao Cao tried to employ Guan Yu. This was the only time in Guan Yu's life that he was really promoted as the supreme leader of the military. But in the end, Guan Yu was not touched by any of this. Acknowledging Guan Yu's loyal character, Cao Cao honorably discharges him. But in a poetic twist of fate, Guan Yu will play a role in Cao Cao's downfall. Winter 208 AD. The massive army of Cao Cao engages with a smaller force led by the southern warlords and Guan Yu. Feigning surrender, enemy units infiltrate Cao Cao's war fleet, setting his armada ablaze. Cao Cao would never recover from this defeat, and the war for control of China will result in stalemate for nearly a century. My investigation so far has allowed me to discern fact from fiction regarding China's era of the Three Kingdoms, as well as uncover evidence that the Anyang tomb could be Cao Cao's final resting place. Now, I get a lead that another recent discovery may reveal even more secrets about the Anyang tomb. Mystery continues to surround an ancient tomb uncovered in Anyang in the heart of China. Evidence suggests that it may be the resting place of the 2nd century warlord, Cao Cao, a man who once threatened to dominate all of China. But as experts work to determine the truth, another surprise discovery fires the ongoing debate. In 2011, workers building a new highway stumble upon another ancient crypt. Archaeologists believe that the tomb belongs to Cao Xiu, one of Cao Cao's nephews. Can this new find provide clues that would shed light on the mystery of the Anyang tomb? Or would it open up even more questions? I meet up with Wang, a young archaeologist who has been studying the site.
整个墓葬是由墓道、甬道，还有就是前室、后墓室、南侧室还有北侧室构成的，而且还有一个耳室。现在我们就在前室，前室的顶部已经整个塌掉了，原来应该是一个拱券的顶部，它的复原高度应该在4.4米左右。
那我们做比较一下的话，跟这个其他的东汉时代、曹魏时代，
它也属于那个曹魏时期王侯级别的墓葬，跟曹操墓的就是总体的尺寸是差不多相当的。因为那个曹操墓可能就是整个在做法上，在工艺上可能更细致一点，包括它的就是侧室的，包括一些那个就是侧室的，包括一些后室的顶部啊，比它都要高，但是整体的这个平面尺寸是差不多的。
Both the Cao Xiu and Anyang crypts do not contain the kind of extravagance that characterized tombs from earlier eras. This is an important clue that links the sites to Cao Cao's legacy. During the preceding Eastern Han Dynasty, aristocrats were buried with untold riches for their enjoyment in the afterlife. But the practice soon became a financial burden as the empire crumbled during Cao Cao's lifetime. To redirect precious resources needed for the wars that were spreading across the land, Cao Cao would put an end to this costly ritual. But how far did this austerity drive go? To investigate, I returned to the site of the Anyang tomb. The masonry and construction of the tomb is of high quality, but not extravagant, suggesting a thoughtful but Spartan approach to its construction. But can the details of these stones reveal even more about the cost-cutting measures instituted by Cao Cao himself? I began looking at the defaced carvings that I had previously attributed to purposeful desecration, not suspecting that I'm about to uncover the true extent of Cao Cao's reforms on burial customs.
这一定是东汉时代，东汉末期的，这是
它的服饰上，包括尺码都是那个时代的。哎，这是破坏掉了。所以曹操用的不是没有破坏掉的，这就说他是把它破坏掉，重新再刻很新的。哎，他这个只要是他重复利用的，都要把它破坏掉。
哦，所以这个破坏掉的是摆在地上的，摆在另外一边的。Okay, so these are not the ones that were desecrated purposefully by the tomb raiders. They were actually recycled. So when he used them, he had them chipped, had them defaced, and turned them around to use them for flooring.
Even in death, Cao Cao would practice the same cost-saving measures he helped to pioneer by having his tomb built from recycled slabs. Together with other clues from the artifacts unearthed, forensic test results of the tomb occupants' remains, and even historical records, many archaeologists now have the reason to believe that this could be the final resting place of Cao Cao.
This is one of the rare experiences in life that will render an archaeologist speechless and make us feel that our work is so rewarding. But personally, I am so honored to be inside the everlasting residence of a man that I had read about as a child. I feel like I've taken a roundabout journey personally as a child who loved the romance of three kingdoms and just reveled in the fantasy world that was created, to understanding through study, academic scholarship about the three kingdoms, and realizing that here we have one of the greatest historical figures in Chinese history.
It may take many more years before we can truly confirm that this is Cao Cao's tomb. But the secrets hidden within this tomb will no doubt continue to impact on our understanding of the three kingdoms, ancient China's most romanticized era.